Welcome. It is time. We are in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon live. This is CRN Digital Talk Radio, streaming live coast to coast and around the world on crntalk.com. Streaming as well on Facebook, facebook.com/crntalk/videos. Make sure to check us out there. Also, we're streaming live on Richard's Facebook page as well. Just search Richard Nixon on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a big show today. Lots to talk about, a lot in the news. What a week. But first of all, Richard, sir, how are you doing today?
Just fine. Glad to see that the Kavanaugh fiasco is over.
Quite so, sir. Indeed, Mr. Kavanaugh was indeed sworn in, I believe, last night as our next Associate Supreme Court Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. And I believe he's hearing his first case today.
That's what I understand, yes.
Off to an auspicious start to hit the ground running. And we're going to talk a little bit briefly about the confirmation process. It was contentious.
It was.
Some would say, I think, to the detriment of our country overall.
Yes, it was unnecessary because, as we had spoken earlier, Mike, that Senator Feinstein could very easily have introduced this letter on the QT to the rest of the people on the committee. The FBI could have been tuned in back in June or July, and all this could have been done without embarrassing either Dr. Ford or Judge Kavanaugh.
Yeah, absolutely. The politicization of this case, of this this confirmation process, I thought was a little bit off-putting, and I think we'll have. And we talked about this last week. I think it's going to send a dangerous precedent moving forward for not only Supreme Court nominees, but I think all presidential appointees moving forward. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about Judge Kavanaugh. I mean, he's seated. He is now. I mean, like I said, doesn't matter if you're confirmed 50-48, like Brett Kavanaugh was. It doesn't matter if you're confirmed 96-4, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg was. It doesn't say that on your robe.
That's right.
You are still a Supreme Court justice. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through 5 cases that Kavanaugh himself, and correct me if I'm wrong, will cite the great examples of Supreme Court jurisprudence and independence. There was a lot of talk. He was asked by the media vociferously if he was going to have the kind of judicial independence that previous Supreme Court justices have shown, or that we idealize to have shown. But he points to 5 particular cases that he holds up with great esteem as cases of judicial independence. So we're going to go through those. But before we start, real fast. You came in today a little hot under the collar because you were going through some of Kavanaugh's case history, and he has a very similar case history to another justice of the D.C. Court.
Yes, in fact, you wonder, as Shakespeare would say, there's much ado about nothing because the Democrats railed against the fact that Judge Garland was never permitted to have a vote in the Senate when he was nominated by President Obama, but it turns out that Judge Garland and Judge Kavanaugh have ruled. They're both on the D.C. Circuit. They both were on the same circuit. They ruled in lockstep with each other. There's hardly a shred of evidence that suggests they're any different from each other.
Absolutely. We're going to talk more about it after the break. We're going to go through each of these 5 cases that Justice Kavanaugh has cited as examples of laudatory judicial independence. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other stuff. You guys stay with us. We'll be right back. A little short break, 1 minute. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/CRN/videos. Check us out on crntalk.com, broadcasting coast to coast and around the world. Be right back.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you could donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now, 1-800-785-9618. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-785-9618. That's 1-800-785-9618.
Richard Nixon live in the Legal Lounge, CRN Digital Talk Radio, crntalk.com. We got a great show for you guys. Give us a call, 818-818-6401. That's 818-818-6401. And also make sure to check out Richard's website. It's right there at the top of the video. It's www.pres37th.wix.com/America, or just go on your Google machine and search America, An Illusion of Freedom by Richard Nixon. That is his fantastic book. It's available on Amazon, iTunes, as well as a Barnes and Noble. And so let's get to, before we go through these cases, let's get to a little bit more about the idea of judicial independence. Richard, just give me what your view is of true judicial independence.
Well, I think that's aspirational. In other words, I don't think there really is such a thing because, let's face it, the justices that sit on the Supreme Court are picked by the president. The president is a politician. The two political branches are the president and the Congress. So it requires both of them to, if you will, approve of this choice. Excuse me. So I think the most we can hope for is that the justice actually look at the evidence and ignore the status of the people, their wealth or their poverty, their race, and intelligence, etc. That's the most we can hope for, but I think you've said it before, Mike. We're all just a bit prejudiced, and we just have to work on it.
We all have our inherent biases. I mean, they're culturally impacted, they're societally impacted. It's impossible to deny that. But Brett Kavanaugh, he did say that he would interpret,
yes,
not write. And he said there's the text, history, and precedent of the law.
And he also said he likes to drink beer, and I hope he doesn't combine the two. But anyway.
I would hope not, indeed. And so it was a wacky week last week. I mean, Susan Collins gave a very, very impassioned speech. It's the first time I've heard her speak at length in that capacity. And regardless of whether or not you agreed with her vote or not, I think it's hard to deny that she spoke with passion and eloquence.
Absolutely. And again, she's never been my favorite. She's kind of like McCain to me. Oftentimes I thought she was grandstanding without much to say, but she proved me wrong this time. She really summarized exactly, I think, fairly everybody's feelings, including hers, of course. And as to why we had to let this nomination go through, if for no other reason, to prevent this from happening again.
Absolutely. And so let's get down to it. So Brett Kavanaugh, he's a member of the Supreme Court now, and he cited, you brought in these cases that he cited as examples of judicial independence and how he will indeed, follow in the footsteps, the lineage of these cases for his own judicial independence. And this first one on our list is one of our old favorites.
Yes.
It is one of, we've talked about this before at length. It's a fundamental case. It comes from 1803. What is this case, Richard?
It is Marbury versus Madison, of course, but the problem is that somebody on the Democrat side basically said in the committee hearings, President Trump has appointed you. Isn't it possible that you'll have a leaning toward, if you have a case before you regarding the president, that you'll kind of favor him because he appointed you? And he said, no, that's not the way I operate. And in fact, my 5 favorite cases, what I call the great cases, are cases wherein judicial independence was foremost. Mm-hmm. However, I think, if I may, I think the first case, Marbury versus Madison, 1803, where the Supreme Court basically said that it had jurisdiction, even though it's not mentioned in the Constitution, to overrule acts of Congress. I think that's more judicial activism than it is judicial independence.
Yeah, Marbury versus Madison remains the single most important decision in constitutional law, according to some. And can you kind of give us some, we've talked about this before, but just for our new listeners and, for a little bit of review, can you give us kind of a background of the case?
Yes, it's kind of convoluted in the sense that these were holdover commissions from the previous administration, the Adams administration. Jefferson had just been elected president, and some of these commissions did not go to complete fruition, and they were up for completion, and Jefferson withdrew them. And so Marbury was one of these people who was supposed to get some type of commission, so he sued Madison, who was the Secretary of State at the time. Interestingly enough, Chief Justice Marshall was wearing two hats at that time, too. He was not only sitting on the Supreme Court, but he was also acting in some capacity in the previous government. It was like a holdover. But the most amazing thing that I find, and it's a quote here, that in fact it was a surprise to Jefferson, that Marshall examined the law Congress had passed that gave the Supreme Court jurisdiction over types of cases like Marbury's, and found that it had expanded the definition of the Supreme Court's jurisdiction beyond what was originally set down in the U.S. Constitution. So based upon the fact that this so-called authority exceeded that which the Constitution gave the Supreme Court, he found that the court had no jurisdiction. And based upon that, what he should have done is dismiss the action. But instead, what he declared is that we, the Supreme Court, have a right to void acts of Congress. So, and the double irony here is that his authority to void acts of Congress is also not in the Constitution. Therefore, the Supreme Court really did not have the authority that he exercised either. So it's a case worth reading, and if you only buy my book to read that case, it's worth it.
Absolutely, because it really sets the table. I mean, it sets the table for the rest of your fantastic book, America: An Illusion of Freedom, and it's because, like you said, Marshall struck down this law, announcing for the entire country and for the world to hear that American courts had the power to invalidate laws that it found
yes,
violate the Constitution. Not that the House of Representatives or the senators, the People's Branch found that it violates the Constitution, but the court itself. And that really started this, it starts judicial activism.
Well, and it starts the political stuff too, if you will, because Marshall was a Federalist, as President Adams had been a Federalist, and they were doing everything they could to confound the new President, Jefferson.
And you called these several of these cases that we're going to discuss today activist cases. And so, Richard, what's your opinion now that Brett Kavanaugh has said publicly that this is a case that he looks to with great respect as a judicial independence? What's that give you? We're about a minute before the break. How does that impact your opinion of him and how he's going to move forward on the court?
Well, I think I've used the term before, but much ado about nothing, because at first I was kind of excited over the pick because he came from the Federalist Society. At least they had sanctioned him. The ABA gave him very, very high ratings. So I thought maybe we've got a guy that will actually read the Constitution, use the words. But he's already admitted that one of the cases that I find absolutely ill-formed, he finds is one of the greatest cases. So I'm kind of lukewarm on the guy now. All
right. Well, if Brett Kavanaugh, you want to come on the show and debate Richard Nixon, you come on the show. You can stay at my house. We'll be right back. You guys stick around. Richard Nixon, he's an attorney, he's a scientist, he's a constitutional scholar, he's a recreational conga player and Corvette aficionado. We'll be right back, you guys, right after the break. Stay with us. Any questions or comments, give us a call, 818-818-6401, or shoot us an email, richardnixon@crntalk.com, richardnixon@crntalk.com.
You're experiencing pain, back pain, shoulder, elbow, or hand pain from a sports injury? If so, schedule a visit with Dr. Michael Sheps, the leading expert in laser therapy for pain management. Call 310-873-4422 or go to drsheps.com. Experience Epic T, the breakthrough laser therapy system that Dr. Sheps developed to make you pain-free in less time. Laser therapy is a non-invasive, safe, and effective in-office procedure that penetrates deep into your skin without damaging the tissue. It perfectly targets areas of pain to promote fast, natural healing. Relax your muscles, ease muscle spasms, joint stiffness, and arthritis pain while increasing blood circulation. For over 25 years, Dr. Sheps has helped Olympic athletes and sports enthusiasts alike get back in the game. Schedule your visit with Dr. Sheps at his Brentwood office in California. Call 310-873-4422 or visit drsheps.com. That's DRSHEPS.com, 310-873-4422.
When you really want Italian food, you have got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. What happened to summer? You turn around and it's gone. So what do? Solution. Either stop turning around or head on over to Columbo's and enjoy the most delicious steaks imaginable. Seafood that brings awe and wonderment to your happy little taste buds. Columbo family Italian recipes so special they're kept under lock and key at an undisclosed and secure location. Jazz every night and the world's greatest meatballs. Need I say more? Oh, but I will. Enjoy the summer and head on over to Columbo's Italian Steakhouse, Good Time Central. Columbo's, because it really is that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, mangia.
Do you want to fly somewhere, anywhere in the world? Smart travelers call myflightsearch.com for the best deals on flight tickets. Going to Manila, Bangkok, London, how about Singapore? Call myflightsearch.com for the lowest flight tickets available. What about a local vacation? Let's say you want to fly to Vegas, Orlando, Miami, Los Angeles, or Denver. Pick up the phone and call myflightsearch.com right now. We have exclusive deals that you can't find anywhere else. The only way you can get these low airline prices is by calling us. We have so many low prices available, we can't possibly tell them to you right here and now. If you're flying somewhere anytime in the next 6 months and you want the lowest airline ticket prices anywhere, you owe it to yourself to save a ton of money. So pick up your cell phone and call myflightsearch.com right now.
Call 800-445-3166. 800-445-3166. That's 800-445-3166. Call now. 800-445-3166.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live in the Legal Lounge, crntalk.com. That's crntalk.com, facebook.com/crntalk. We're so happy to be here, joined by one Richard Nixon. He's a practicing attorney. He's a Bachelor of Science in Physics, a Doctorate of Law. And check out his fantastic book, you guys. It's a great, great read. I mean, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, it's just a fantastic read, and it'll get you a grasp of the politics and the process behind jurisprudence and where it is, started, and like we just talked about Marbury versus Madison, 1803, the original sin, one might say, of judicial activism, and so many more pertinent topics involving the Constitution and the composition of the court moving forward. And so we want to go through some more of these cases. And what you said to me during the break, Richard, which really struck with me, is that the United States is a country based on the rule of law. And I think it's important, and you said during the break that it's important that we as a country, as a nation, as citizens, we should really discuss these issues, debate these legal issues regarding jurisprudence, regarding constitutional law, because if we don't do it, because we are somewhat of a shining city on a hill when it comes to the legal system around the world, if we don't talk about it, who will?
Exactly.
And it's very important that we have this kind of earnest and open debate, regardless of politics, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, just about the process of law and how it all works. But let's get back to these cases that we were talking about. These cases that Justice Brett Kavanaugh, newly sworn in as Supreme Court Justice, has looked to as paragons of judicial independence. Once questioned about where his own independence will be, and we, first case we talked about Marbury versus Madison. Now let's talk about this next case. This is Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company versus Sawyer, 1952. Let's talk about that.
Yes, well, we went from Marbury in 1803 to Youngstown Sheet, 1952. Basically what this was is that President Truman tried to seize the steel plants because this was 1952, the Korean War was still going on, and he felt that it was necessary for security of the nation to be able to build planes and ships, etc., things that required steel, frankly, at the government's disposal. He was surprised because several of the Supreme Court justices that he had appointed ruled against him and said the only way we could have such authority is if it were expressly stated in Article 2. Article 2 is the part of the Constitution that deals with the president's power, or if it was expressly sanctioned or stated by Congress. Neither one was the case, and therefore they said the president exceeded his authority by extending the government power over the steel industry.
This is a fascinating case. I mean, this is literally the President of the United States attempting to nationalize a private industry at the height of what might call the Red Scare, which is quite ironic to me. But I believe Justice Hugo Black had a majority decision, which is interesting to read.
Yes. Excuse me. And actually, it's Justice Jackson who's been quoted throughout history for defining exactly when the president is at the zenith of his power, and that is where Congress has literally given him express authority, and he acts pursuant to that authority, and where at the other end, where he has the least power, is when Congress has not stated it, and there's some question as to whether or not it's in the Constitution. In any event, there was a good dissent, I think a meritorious dissent, basically saying that the president should be given the benefit of the doubt given the extreme circumstances.
Because the president is, in fact, commander-in-chief, and we were at war during that time. And so, I mean, steel is a pretty important commodity when it comes to war fighting.
Absolutely.
So there you go. It's a very interesting case. Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company versus Sawyer about presidential powers and about whether or not the court can limit the president as commander in chief. And like you said, Justice Robert H. Jackson's opinion is now used by legal scholars and members of Congress to assess executive power. It's a fascinating case.
But I think I can side with Justice. I was going to say Kavanaugh. In his assessment that this is judicial independence, but I'm not sure it's the best example of saying. Perhaps were it to be reviewed again, it would have been reversed.
Interesting, yeah. And there's a great quote from your book, and what you said before is that from Justice Black that redefining terms in law is, in fact, judicial activism.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk more about these cases. We got 3 to go, you guys, coming up right after the break. We're going to go through all 3 of them. These are cases that newly sworn-in Justice Brett Kavanaugh has declared paragons of judicial activism once his judicial independence was questioned by the media, and we're going to go through them one by one. Thank you so much for being here. This is CRN Digital Talk Radio. We're in the Legal Lounge with Richard Nixon. It's Richard Nixon Live, streaming live coast to coast and around the world on crntalk.com, facebook.com/crntalk. Join us there.
When you really want Italian food, you have got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. What happened to summer? You turn around and it's gone. So what do? Solution. Either stop turning around or head on over to Columbo's and enjoy the most delicious steaks imaginable. Seafood that brings awe and wonderment to your happy little taste buds. Columbo family Italian recipes so special they're kept under lock and key at an undisclosed and secure location. Jazz every night and the world's greatest meatballs. Need I say more? Oh, but I will. Enjoy the summer and head on over to Columbo's Italian Steakhouse. Good Time Central. Columbo's, because it really is that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's. Mangia.
You check things all the time, like your email every 10 seconds, or your ex's Instagram. But what about checking something as important as your credit? Well, Discover makes it quick, easy, and best of all, free. Discover is now offering FICO credit scores to everyone for free, even if you're not a customer. And checking your score won't hurt your credit. We call it the Discover Credit Scorecard. And once you know your score, you should check to see if your current credit card is the best fit for you. Check your credit, compare your card. Go to discover.com/credit scorecard. Limitations apply.
The smartest way for you to get the lowest prices on your plane tickets, domestic or international, is to call SmartFares first or last, but you've got to call us before you book your plane tickets. Fly anywhere in the world, fly anywhere in the U.S., and SmartFares can save you up to 75% on your plane tickets. We have the lowest airline ticket prices on over 500 airlines, and you've got a great 12-hour free cancellation window. Plus, with our live agent help, you can always get fast help and fast answers. So on your next trip, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, how about right now? pick up your phone and call Smart Fares, plus save up to 75% on your plane reservation. So call right now. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644.
Destination South Point. 11 great restaurants, bingo, bowling, movies, race books, sports books, spa, live entertainment, oversized rooms, and the rates unbeatable. The South Point Las Vegas. Book now. Online at southpointcasino.com or call 866-791-7626. southpointcasino.com or call 866-791-7626. At the South Point Las Vegas, you're always a winner.
Still got those annoying critters? I'm talking bees and fleas, spiders, ants, roaches, bed bugs, and those disgusting rodents. Have you made that call to Dewey Pest Control yet? What's holding you back? Get rid of them, and I mean right now. When the heat brings them out, it's time to call Dewey, because Dewey knocks them down and keeps them out. Dewey's an 89-year Heritage California family business with 32 offices statewide. Think you got those 24/7 wood-munching termites chewing up your house? Call Dewey right now for their free inspection. And all this month, get $89 off with a regular maintenance program. Call 800-209-0900. That's 800-209-0900. Just one call to Dewey does it all. 800-209-0900. Or get your free inspection online at DeweyRadio.com. That's Dewey, D-E-W-E-Y, DeweyRadio.com.
And we are back. Legal Lounge, Richard Nixon live. Richard Nixon, he's an author, he's an attorney. America, An Illusion of Freedom is his fantastic book, available Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, as well as YouTube. And Richard also is a former service member. And if you guys knew Richard personally, if you knew Richard Nixon personally and served with him personally during his time of service, 63 to 65 and 68 in country in Vietnam as a contractor, please give us a call here at the office, 818-818-6400, or shoot us an email, richardnixon@crntalk.com. That's richardnixon@crntalk.com. We'd like to provide you a free copy.
Thanks for that, Mike.
Of his fantastic book. And sorry I had to cut you off before, but you wanted to quote some more language from the Youngstown dissent that I think is pertinent.
Well, I thought it was pertinent because the President Truman at the time said that he only took this action because Congress had not yet spoken. And were they to speak either to approve, disapprove, or modify, he would agree to whatever they suggested. However, once I got that out of my mouth, I realized that that's something that President Obama tried to do. Remember, he had the Dreamers?
The Dreamers, yes.
And people kept saying, why don't you do this, Mr. President? And I understand it's no exaggeration that he said 21 times, I am not an emperor, I'm not the boss, I have to wait for Congress. But after 21 times, he finally did do it. So it kind of puts me in mind with what Truman was going through, the same thing. That is, Congress won't act, somebody has to, so I'll act.
Well, similarly, President Obama said the same thing about the so-called Syrian Red Line, about how he wanted to use, he advocated for using force to dispel the Syrian regime from using very terrible tactics, suppressing a rebellion in Syria. And he says, look, in the exact same language, I'm not emperor, and especially when it comes to foreign policy and the use of force, that he wanted the Congress to act, and they did not do it. And similarly, Truman as well, he was pleading with Congress to take appropriate action here, but like we said before, Congress, ever since in time immemorial, they know that the labor unions, especially in this Youngstown case, were very, very important, and politically it was expensive for Congress to act.
And you see, this is why we get back to Congress is necessary to declare war, But once the war is started, you have to have a single mind, namely the commander-in-chief. Otherwise, you can't do a war with a committee. It just won't work. You can't have everything subject to a vote. There has to be one person in charge. That's the commander-in-chief.
The last time war was officially declared by the United States Congress was World War II. Every subsequent war has been carried out by presidential executive order or a military authorization of force from the Congress, which is very, very sweeping and broad powers and defined. Let's get to this third case, and this is a biggie. This is one that everybody hears about, everybody studies throughout their education. This is Brown versus Board of Education, the Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. This was a landmark Supreme case. What can you tell us about this case and Judge Kavanaugh's referencing this case about judicial independence?
Well, of course, quite frankly, I don't mean to be cynical. This is a 1954 case, Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. But every Supreme Court nominee must, PC demands that they must be in favor of Brown versus Board of Education. I, of course, agree with the result of the case. However, what this case was about was segregation versus integration of the public schools in this country. A previous case, Plessy versus Ferguson, had said it was okay to keep, in those days the word was Negro and whites separate. As long as they had equal accommodations, they could be kept separate by law. Well, this was in the context of transportation. But in this context, the schools and education, the court said, well, if it's separate, it's inherently unequal. However, what they did is, you see, it took the Supreme Court to fashion a remedy when it should have been done by Congress. In other words, the Equal Protection Clause is part of the 14th Amendment, and all of us, we all know from previous sessions that the 14th Amendment has an Equal Protection Clause. It also has, that's in Section 1, it also has a Section 5 that allows Congress to remedy the situation. Congress could have, at that point, fleshed in whatever they thought was appropriate to define equal protection and simply say that when it comes to education or schools, they must be, segregation must end. And of course, there's a difference between ending segregation and forcing integration. That's a subtle point that the Supreme Court did not touch. But my point is, I agree with the results. However, I disagree with the method by which they got there.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with that the results, are everybody agrees with the results, but like you said, the process becomes muddied because once again, this is it's a unilateral decision by the court. It doesn't take into account any of the Congress, and the Congress are elected by the people,
right? And
they are the people that we send to Washington to make laws. And the executive is one that enforces the laws.
Exactly.
And the judicial branch is the one that oversees this. Would you say it would oversee be the right language for that?
Well, not exactly, because one of the things courts try to stay away from is just that, because to the extent that you oversee, the court remains entangled in the thing. What courts love to do, frankly, is issue final decisions and then let the executive branch enforce that decision.
Interesting. So there you go, you guys. Board versus Brown Education is another example of that Justice Brett Kavanaugh looks to as an example of laudatory judicial activism. And like we just said, I mean, we can all agree that the outcome of the case is laudable, but the process is a little bit murky. And so there you have it. Marbury versus Madison, Youngstown Steel versus Sawyer, and now Brown versus Board of Education. And after the break, you guys, we're going to get into two more cases to go. We have Griswold versus Connecticut, which is one that's considered an absolute landmark, 1965. If you guys have any questions or comments, you want to challenge either of us to a debate, good luck with that, but give us a call, 818-818-6401. And one of our listeners, Val, was just chimed in on the Facebook page, and she said, we mentioned Thomas Jefferson, that Val says that she's distantly related to Thomas Jefferson. He's many times back an uncle, very fascinating. So thank you, Val, for letting us know. Ken Jeffries, I see you there too.
Tell Val I'm very distantly related to Richard M. Nixon too.
Oh wow!
Not really.
There you go. You guys stick around. We'll be right back right after the break. Thanks so much to all of our listeners and people on Facebook. Keep the comments coming. We love it. And shoot Richard an email, richardnixon@crntalk.com. We'll be right back right after the break.
You can't print invoices without ink. You can't print status reports, spreadsheets, or that report due in 12 minutes without ink. No, you can't print anything without ink. Luckily, Staples has a huge selection of ink and toner in stock and at great prices every day. And during Staples printing event, buy 1 HP ink cartridge and get a second 30% off. So stock up now, because you can't afford to run out of ink.
Ends 10/13/18. Restrictions may apply. See store associate or staples.com/ink savings for details.
Trying to sell your old car? Instead, donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind. Pickup is free and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats, whether they run or not. Call right now and receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call 1-800-785-9618. Donate your car today. That's 1-800-785-9618.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS? Newsflash, the president has changed the tax laws, and now you may be able to pay the IRS less. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, the tax doctor can help you pay the IRS as little as possible allowed by law. There are new tax laws for business owners, the self-employed, even W-2 workers. If you have a back tax problem or a few years of unfilled returns, new help to save you money is now here. Call right now to see how the new tax laws can help you. Plus, right now, we'll waive the consultation fee and give you a free tax savings report. Attention business owners, the self-employed, and W-2 workers. Make this free call to the tax doctor now and learn how to take advantage of the new tax laws that may help you pay the IRS less.
800-985-1610. 800-985-1610. 800-985-1610. That's 800-985-1610.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live. We're in the Legal Lounge, broadcasting live coast to coast around the world from CRN's Op Center here in Los Angeles, California. We're broadcasting, of course, coast to coast and around the world on the internet and as well on Facebook and your local cable system. So make sure to check us out, crntalk.com. Also, check out Richard's website, www.pres37th.wix.com/America, or just search on your Google machine Richard Nixon, America, An Illusion of Freedom. That's his fantastic book, available at online books retailers around the world. And we're going through these cases, 5 cases that newly sworn in Justice Brett Kavanaugh has cited as laudatory examples of judicial independence that he says he will definitely take part in, and he's beholden to no one except the law, except what he said, the text, the interpretation of, and the precedent of case law. And this 4th case is interesting. And one of your judicial heroes had just a blazing dissent. And this is Griswold versus Connecticut, 1965. Richard, tell us about this case.
Yes, basically this was kind of, if you will, a silly law because it prohibited married couples from using contraceptives. And all the justices in there said that the law was silly. However, its silliness does not reach the Constitution. It doesn't render it unconstitutional because it's silly. But again, what the court did is they really, really strained to find what they considered to be a right to privacy in this situation. They put together almost all of the Bill of Rights, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 9th, and so on. In fact, that's what Justice Black in dissent said, that you guys just made, a Frankenstein monster out of all these different parts, but you've never told us where in the Constitution that so-called right of privacy exists. And they talked about these very lofty words such as penumbras and emanations and so on, and basically he had a good time ridiculing the majority, but that's the law today. And that case gave rise to, I should say gave birth to, pun intended, the next case, which was Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, the right to privacy is not, this isn't a concept that goes back to the founding fathers in terms of that specific language. It really comes out of the progressive movement in the early 20th century under the Brandeis Court and Woodrow Wilson's administration. But if you really want a contraception for married couples, all you have to do is really put a TV in the bedroom. But we're running out of time. Let's move on to this fifth and final case. And this case is special to both of our hearts. This is United States. This is 1974. United States versus Richard Nixon. Not the Richard Nixon that's sitting across from me, but one former president, Richard Nixon. And this, of course, rose out of the Watergate scandal. Richard, fill us in about this case.
Well, just very briefly, this is, as you said, 1974 case. Mr. Nixon was, the burglars of the Watergate plumbers, they were arrested and they were going through a trial. And during discovery, they thought that possibly some of the tapes that the White House had, they were privy to those tapes. It might shed light on the 5 burglars and asymptotically, if you will, on Mr. Nixon as well. They were still, again, they were trying to get Nixon. President Nixon did volunteer a lot of documentation, but it wasn't enough. Judge Sirica ordered him to produce those tapes. And so it was a battle between the special prosecutor, who of course works for the executive branch, and Mr. Nixon. Mr. Nixon talked about executive privilege, that whatever he did, it was privileged because it was within his own branch, and that it was basically an inter-executive branch dispute, and that the judiciary had no business getting involved. And of course, the Constitution doesn't necessarily talk about the executive branch in those terms, but it does say that the Senate and the House of Representatives, excuse me, can make their own rules. So it's consistent with at least that philosophy. And basically, he said that he should be able to resolve this dispute without the court, but the court ordered him to do so. And instead of destroying the tapes like some people say he should have done, he did want to create a constitutional crisis, so he turned them over.
Yeah, and a lot of terms d'art come out from the whole Watergate some scandal. The term like Saturday Night Massacre and Stonewall. And it should be noted to our listeners that Nixon's often accused of stonewalling, but he did turn over transcripts of 43 conversations, including portions of 20 conversations demanded by this particular subpoena of the special prosecutor. But James D. St. Clair had Nixon's attorney had an interesting quote, and we talked about this before the show, about the presidential powers regarding monarchy. It says the president wants me, very interesting language there, wants me to argue that he's as powerful as a monarch as Louis XIV, only for years at a time. And that specific language, I think, is poor lawyering.
It's very poor. I mean, he's saying it reluctantly to the court. By the way, Your Honors, the president wants me to say ABC. That's just totally unheard of.
Yeah, by saying wants me, that there's a connotation and denotation there, and also there's a connotation and denotation of citing Louis XIV as an example. But you guys stick around. We're going to be right back. This has been fun. We're going to wrap things up right after the break. This is Richard Nixon Live. Any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email us, richardnixon@crntalk.com. Check out his book, America, An Illusion of Freedom, available on his personal website, available also on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and as well as iTunes. Also, check out the video available on YouTube on our CRN YouTube channel. Just go to search YouTube for CRN Talk, and you can watch us right there, you guys. Also, we're on Facebook. Be right back.
Hey Lorraine, do you realize that your mother, my mother-in-law, Chef Maria, has been serving Las Vegas since 1949?
Yes, I do, Dennis. That's when she first met Howard Hughes, who fell in love with her cooking.
And in 1955, she opened her first restaurant on Fremont Street.
Yes, dear. And another great customer was Liberace.
Wow. Then in 1962, while Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack were causing global excitement on the Las Vegas Strip, your family opened their second restaurant.
And in 1970, 1972, Elvis Presley began electrifying Las Vegas audiences and eating in our restaurants.
You know, Lorraine, this is quite a town. There's only one Las Vegas.
And there's only one Bootlegger Italian Bistro.
Folks, when you're in Las Vegas, come visit us. We'll make you feel like you're part of our family.
The Bootlegger Italian Bistro, conveniently located at 7700 Las Vegas Boulevard, South Strip. Visit our website at www.bootleggerlasvegas.com.
Do you want to fly somewhere, anywhere in the world? Smart travelers call myflightsearch.com for the best deals on flight tickets. Going to Manila, Bangkok, London, how about Singapore? Call myflightsearch.com for the lowest flight tickets available. What about a local vacation? Let's say you want to fly to Vegas, Orlando, Miami, Los Angeles, or Denver. Pick up the phone and call myflightsearch.com right now. We have exclusive deals that you can't find anywhere else. The only way you can get these low airline prices is by calling us. We have so many low prices available, we can't possibly tell them to you right here and now. If you're flying somewhere anytime in the next 6 months and you want the lowest airline ticket prices anywhere, you owe it to yourself to save a ton of money. So pick up your cell phone and call myflightsearch.com right now.
Call 800-445-3166. 800-445-3166. That's 800-445-3166. Call now. 800-445-3166.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet. So make a free call to Page Publishing. Their expert staff can help you turn your book idea into a real book, a masterpiece that could someday make the bestseller list in hard copy and digitally all across the world. Page Publishing can help you completely take your idea for a book, write it, and publish it. So if you want to join the ranks of some of the most famous authors in the world, call now for a free information kit. Turn your book idea into publishing gold. Make a free call right now to Page Publishing.
800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. That's 800-378-3212.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live in the Legal Lounge, CRN Digital Talk Radio, streaming live, crntalk.com, facebook.com/CRN Talk, and millions of TV sets around the country via various cable systems. So we spent the rest of this greater part of the hour talking about 5 cases that Brett Kavanaugh considers laudatory examples of judicial independence and independence that he claims he will continue to exhibit as his place on the court. So let's talk about what you think is going to happen. What's pull out your crystal ball, Richard, here, and tell us what's going to happen on the court. What things do you think Kavanaugh's going to do right in your opinion, wrong in your opinion? Give us the laydown here.
Well, not so much focusing on what's going to happen on the court, but what disturbs me and why, to a certain extent, I'm pleased that Judge Kavanaugh is now Justice Kavanaugh. Not so much because of him, quite frankly, because I have my doubts as to his conservative bona fides, but as someone said very cynically, and I'm afraid I believe in it to a certain extent, that when it comes to sexual harassment in that context today, the women are always believed to be telling the truth. The men always lie, unless the man turns out to be a liberal man, such as Clinton, Keith Ellison, or Senator Mendez. Then they, because of their denials, they're believed, and the woman is the liar. And I'm afraid that's what we get out of this.
Yeah, it sets a precedent. Yeah, it's rough. I mean, it's hard. It's really, and I don't want to use this term lightly, but it was really an example of a he said she said thing with this Brett Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford.
Well, you made a good point, because you mentioned one day that some people like to describe this as a job interview.
Yeah.
But you also said, but on the other hand, lying to the Senate is a felony, And also, a job interview is never done under penalty of perjury. So it's clearly not a job interview. My point is, and I think we said it before, that much ado about nothing, it was only a showpiece just to show that the Democrats could try to deny President Trump his choice.
Yeah, I mean, just to play devil's advocate, I mean, some would say on the left that this Supreme Court seat, should be Merrick Garland's to begin with.
Yes.
That, they held the Mitch McConnell and the Republican-controlled Senate did not have a vote to confirm Merrick Garland. There is precedence for a similar situation. I believe this happened in the Johnson administration. They would not confirm a Supreme Court before an election.
Well, what's going to be interesting is this, because it was brought up on one of the Sunday shows. What happens if, in Trump's last year of his first term, there's an opening such as, what's her name?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Yes.
I mean, she's not...
If she decides to leave, what can he do? Is he going to be then... is the Senate then going to not vote on his choice?
I think it all depends on who's control of the Senate at that point. The glass is broken.
Yes.
I think it's this, with Merrick Garland before, and I think with what's happened in this most recent nomination fight, that certain members of each party will use whatever tactic at their disposal.
Well, but see, Mitch McConnell, I think, answered the question, though. And he said it's only when they're different parties.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because the president in his last year, he might pick a conservative, let's just say that. If the next president is a liberal, he doesn't want that guy on the bench, frankly. We should wait for the voters to pick the new president and then the new nominee. That makes sense to me.
Well, maybe we should let the voters themselves decide who's in the Supreme Court, but we'll talk about that next week.
Yes.
Richard, thank you so much once again for being here and walking us through these important issues. Any questions, comments, or concerns, make sure to send Richard an email, richardnixon@crntalk.com. If you're listening to us right now, we are live, but we also replay throughout the weekend, so make sure to check us out. Also check us out on YouTube and also on Facebook. Once again, Richard, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon, and thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon Live.
Which is most appropriate because that was your theme.
Are you tired of hearing your favorite talk radio shows sound like this? What if you could hear your favorite shows in crystal clear